Welcome to another episode of Fake True Stories, our newest podcast where we look at the true history behind movies that claim to be based in historical fact. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And I'm Isabel Gonzalez.
And today we're discussing the origins of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League as spotlighted in the 1992 baseball dramedy A League of Their Own. This is a unique film for this show, as none of the film's characters are real, but the events that the film depicts are largely based in fact, so sort of the opposite of 300. Before we get into the history of women's professional baseball, let's talk about this film. Isabel, it was your pick this week. Why'd you choose this film?
Man, I grew up watching this film. I used to play softball when I was a kid. I don't think that's why I first watched the film. I don't really remember the first viewing, but I remember we did watch it as a team, and it just always stuck with me as like a cool story. I really liked, seeing a sport that I loved played by women, and it wasn't... I don't know how to say it, but it wasn't like mellowed, if that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like women's sports get a bad rep. Everyone's like, it's women's basketball. It's going to be boring. Oh, they don't care. They just focus on fundamentals. They don't know how to dunk. Like, I don't want to watch that. But it was cool to see this, sports film about women that showed them doing athletic feats like dudes do. It wasn't like, they don't do that stuff. They're just dainty. Like, it showed them trying to be the opposite of that, which was pretty cool. I also appreciate the comedy in it. Freaking Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan gets me every single time. I quote that man all the time. And I thought it would be something good because it's a vastly different film than 300. So, let's jump a couple hundred centuries away to the 1940s.
Yeah, good idea. There's a lot of ground to cover on this show, and things are easier to find when it's as recent as the 1940s. We know these people existed.
Yeah, exactly.
This wasn't Herodotus trying to pull a fast one.
Yeah.
I think this was a good pick. This was my first time seeing this movie. It's been on my list for a long time. I've had people recommend this to me for years. I remember watching the ending as a kid on TV, thinking, baseball. And that was kind of the extent of my thoughts.
Did you see the ending, like, when the old ladies were playing baseball together? Or, like, when Dottie drops the ball ending?
I saw it was just the old ladies in the museum. Just
okay.
seeing, reflecting on their lives. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do something else.
Like, wow, this is such a boring film. You missed all the good stuff.
I'm not really a big baseball fan, but I do love baseball movies. Like, The Sandlot is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think that's delightful. Field of Dreams is great. 8 Men Out is great. 8 Men Out is one we're going to do on this show eventually, because that's a crazy story. But, League of Their Own. I didn't actually know it was based in truth until you brought it to the show.
Mm-hmm. Like, literally the only thing that's, the biggest, that's not true, all the characters. But I'll talk about why I'm okay with that later, but,
Yeah. A League of Their Own was directed by Penny Marshall, who rose to fame in the 1970s with her starring role on the series Laverne and Shirley, which was created by her brother Gary Marshall, who actually plays Walter Harvey in the movie. And if y'all are Hocus Pocus fans, you may remember Gary Marshall as the devil, and Penny Marshall as his angry wife who kicks the witches out of their house. Yeah, these two have been in comedy for a very long time. Regrettably, they've both since passed away. But this is a crowning achievement for the two of them. Penny Marshall also directed Big, Awakenings, The Preacher's Wife, and Riding in Cars with Boys before her death at 75 in 2018 to diabetes. Big is a classic. I don't know if you've ever seen Big. Tom Hanks. It's like the movie that made him famous. This kid goes to a genie vending machine kind of thing, and he's upset that he's not older or taller or something. He says, "I wish I were big." The next morning, he wakes up as Tom Hanks.
I would love to wake up as Tom Hanks.
Well, now he's a 10-year-old in the body of a 30-year-old.
That's fantastic.
He's like, what do I do now? I have to get a job. And his parents kick him out because they're like, who the hell are you? Get out of our son's room.
I'm sure that happened in Fairly Odd Parents.
It did. This was the beginning of that trope. And it's delightful. It's a great movie. And then Awakenings. Oh, my Lord, is that such a great movie. A movie we could do here. It's a same deal. Real situation, fictional characters about a doctor who created a drug that brought 20 lifetime comatose people out of their coma and gave them a chance to be alive, albeit briefly, because the drug wore off. I think he'd ever figure out what happened there, but It's a really depressing movie, but it is a great movie. And really shows Penny Marshall's versatility as a director, too. Comedy, drama, she can do it all. Preacher's Wife was a remake of a 1940s movie called The Bishop's Wife that was really good, and I've never seen Riding in Cars with Boys.
Sorry.
Yeah, my cat is here bothering us. It
He
happens.
tried to nip at my foot.
If y'all have been following our shows for a while, you know Seymour, the FILMGAZM mascot, who just is always here.
To be fair, I did boop his butt.
That's on you then. All right. A League of Their Own. How did this happen? Marshall was the one who was inspired to develop the film after watching a 1987 TV documentary of the same name. This half-hour doc told a brief story of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and some of the major players involved, such as what was her real name? Dottie Collins, and Faye Dancer, I believe, was another one. And this documentary is available for free on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's like 27 minutes long. Doesn't go into a lot of detail. It was a brief TV thing, which I find kind of funny that, the story of this also all too brief sports moment was also pretty brief and not a lot of people knew about it. But Penny Marshall watched it and was like, I got to do something about this. So she brought this idea to the studio, and they developed this thing. The film's impressive ensemble includes Oscar winners Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, as well as pop superstar Madonna, future comedian and talk show host Rosie O'Donnell, SNL alum John Lovitz, Oscar nominee David Strathairn, and character actress Lori Petty. It's a loaded cast. Gina Davis is our hero Dottie. And I've always been a fan of Gina Davis, ever since I saw Beetlejuice as a kid. And I don't really know where she went after the 90s. Mm-mm. She kind of just stopped.
Well, she had Jeff Goldblum's baby after he inseminated her before becoming a fly. So that's where that went.
That will wreck some careers.
Yeah, I think so.
You birth a maggot baby. It's hard to walk back from that.
Movie, I can't.
I still, to this day, I don't know why did you watch that?
Because
you don't like horror, you don't like gore. Why would you
Goldblum, and I said, nah.
The Fly.
I had to watch it.
It's like not being able to swim and just jumping off Niagara Falls. I don't.
That movie traumatized me.
God. She is great in The Fly. You have to see. I recommend this movie from the 80s. It was the 85. It's called Transylvania 65000. Mm-hmm. It was made to settle some sort of oil bet. It's such a weird movie. It's Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. It's where they met. They got married and then got divorced.
I didn't know they were married.
Yeah. These two reporters are sent to Transylvania to look for Frankenstein, and they're like, Frankenstein's a book. Like, we're not gonna find a story. And they go to Transylvania, and it's like the opposite of what you'd expect. It's a very sweet, nice country. The weather's nice, and they're like, what's the deal here? But they find a mad doctor, and something's going on. And Gina Davis is this like nymphomaniac who thinks she's a vampire. It's a very weird movie.
Interesting.
But it's a fun one.
Why did they go to Transylvania to find Frankenstein? He wasn't over there.
He wasn't.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. Well, I mean, the doctor wasn't, everyone could be like, it's actually Frankenstein's monster.
There's a wolfman, a mummy, and like they all just kind of pop in because Transylvania is supposed to.
It's one of those movies. All right.
But in reality, they're all like they're not actually monsters. They're just like patients of a doctor who, whenever he steps into his lab, goes crazy. It's like a weird thing. And he's just trying to help these people. Huh. But the reporter and the mayor of the town are like, they're monsters. We got to stop them.
Wow, that's rude.
It's rude.
They must be from Spartan culture.
Oh, Tom Hanks. Who doesn't know Tom Hanks? Who doesn't love Tom Hanks?
Who?
You may have heard him as Tim Honks.
Who?
He's the best. A lot of people consider him America's dad.
Yeah.
And since the 80s, he's been giving us just quality entertainment. 2-time Oscar winner, both very well deserved. He's got one coming out in January called A Man Called Otto. We read it, admittedly, doesn't look great. But you know what? We're all allowed one or two fuck-ups.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see the movie he did where he played Mr. Rogers?
Absolutely. I actually did. I did. I initially said that lying, and then I remembered that I did. So it was actually a truth. No, I did. It's just been no way. I know it's actually lying. I was thinking about the one where it was like the Walt Disney story. So no, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that emotional roller coaster.
It was a lie, and then it wasn't a lie, and then it was a lie.
Rode right around to no.
No.
Well, it was a delightful movie and probably full of shit, perfect for this show.
Perfect.
And just Tom Hanks is Mr. Rogers. It's inspired. Like, why? Who wouldn't? And then as Walt Disney, he keeps playing these historically, like, likable character. I mean, Disney had his, Nazi-related flaws.
Yeah, I mean,
but
everyone has that at some point.
As we've learned recently, haven't we?
Jesus.
Yeah, but yeah, Tom Hanks. Let's see, some of my favorites of Hanks. He did a movie in '85. I don't know why I keep going back to '85. I guess it was a great year. Volunteers, where he plays a rich kid in Maine who ends up accruing quite a gambling debt and cheats his way onto a plane to Thailand to join the Peace Corps.
Nice.
And ends up actually helping these people and like learning about communist China who's trying to get into them and like get into their village. John Candy's in it. It's so fucking funny. Didn't get a lot of attention. It's one of the few films where Tom Hanks plays a straight up douchebag.
Oh.
It's also where I learned the word douchebag.
Ah.
I love the Da Vinci Code. I know that's divisive, but I enjoyed that movie. I like a good treasure hunt. Forrest Gump is great. Apollo 13 is great. He's the man. Madonna. I've never liked Madonna.
I like her in that movie. I like her in A League of Their Own. Because I feel like I forget it's Madonna because I don't usually, I can't put a face with Madonna, honestly. I know her voice, but she's not singing in the movie until the very end. But that's not even a part of the movie, it's just the credits. But I do like her in that. I like May in that movie. And I do like Rosie O'Donnell's character in that movie. I know people hate Rosie O'Donnell, but, I like her.
Yeah, they're fine in the movie. Madonna as a person, I find absolutely detestable.
She's trying to act like a young pop star. And I'm like, girl, you're like, what, 60 now?
Yeah.
We don't want to see your saggy tits.
For me, it was in the 2000s or in the 90s, she hooked up with Guy Ritchie. Great director. English director. And she started speaking with an English accent. and everyone was like, what are you doing?
That's what happens, apparently, when you have sex with someone from another country.
You absorb their
it's like osmosis.
Traits. Yeah, of course.
We also might get pregnant, but the most important effect that they don't teach you in sex ed, and this is why we got to reform this, is that you become whatever nationality they are.
It sounds like a great, quick scheme to learn a new language.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that was the case?
There'd be a lot more STDs and unwanted pregnancies out there, I think.
That, and you would never be able to lie about, did you sleep with that person? And in an Asian accent, you're like, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And they're just in perfect Midwestern English, yeah, we did.
You're so much.
I want to live in that world. But yeah, Madonna's fucking crazy, and I really don't know why she's here. And also, why does she sing such an incredibly depressing song over the end credits of this movie?
I cannot watch the end credits of that movie because it makes me really sad. Connor and I were at trivia a couple of weeks ago before he had seen A League of Their Own, and that was one of the questions. What movie did she make a song for in the post-credit scene? And I was like, oh man, it's A League of Their Own. That always made me sad, even as a kid, going through existential crises. I'm never going to have a job as a 7-year-old when she's singing that. Man, I'm going to miss this time with my friends playing with Barbies when I'm 50. Oh, no.
But it's after, a very uplifting, hey, we did it, we were there scene. And then it's well, everyone dies, vibe. It's
they're all going to die soon, so that's sad. Just like Betty's husband.
Christ. Yeah. And yeah, Rosie O'Donnell, she's, doing, I think she was funny in the 90s. She's been doing her own thing. I love her in this movie. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about Rosie. John Lovitz. He plays the baseball scout, and he is such a great asshole. He really is the best at that. I love John Lovitz.
Come on, milkmaids.
He's like, get away from me. Oh my God. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. I don't feel when they did a few years ago, they did the 40th anniversary Saturday Night Live special, and everyone who's ever been on that show was there. And they did an in memoriam
Mm-hmm.
to say goodbye to Chris Farley, John
Yeah.
Belushi. And they ended the in memoriam with John Lovitz. And he was there. He's not dead. It was a great joke because he's like, what? What is this? He took it in stride. He always takes it in stride. He's funny. And yeah, David Strathairn's great. He plays the executive who works for Wrigley, who's like, give me the team. I believe in them.
Oh, you mean Harvey?
Who did I say?
He said Wrigley. You said the right person.
Oh, the right guy. My mistake.
You said the historically accurate
My
name.
mistake. Harvey. Yeah, that guy. And then Lori Petty. Let's talk about Lori Petty. I hate her. I hate her a lot. This character is obnoxious and pretty irredeemable in this movie. And it sucks because it's so easy to do that right.
Yeah.
She plays Dottie's sister, Kit. I wanted to say Kay. I knew that wasn't right. Who is just stuck in Dottie's shadow as she thinks. And instead of maybe, moving on somewhere else and trying her hand at, making her own life, she just stays with Dottie and just bitches the whole time. And then in the end, Dottie kind of just gives her a win, like, here. And then they don't speak for like 30 years. But then they meet each other at the end and they're just like, oh, thank God we found each other moment. And I'm just like, no, you didn't earn that.
Yeah, no. Kit definitely was a baby in that movie. When I was younger, I never noticed it, but as I got older, I'm like, man, fuck you. Like, you're being such an ass. Like, your sister didn't want to do this in the first place. She's only here for you. And then she's the one that offered to trade herself. And of course they weren't going to, because she was right in that scene where she's like, this is perfect. Like, that's true. They wouldn't have traded her. But keep in mind, you wouldn't have been there if she wasn't nice enough to be there for you. Like, I don't know. I think the actress, she does a good job at playing a whiny baby sister.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, I don't know her in any other movies or anything like that. But yeah, she.
Well, according to my sources, Lori Petty has an appropriate last name.
Oh.
She's quite petty.
Oh,
and
man.
Didn't quite. I think she had a major role on Orange is the New Black. That was the most recent thing,
really? Okay.
big thing she did. But in the 90s, she did this in a movie called Tank Girl, which didn't go anywhere. And she's had a bit of a rep for being difficult.
Yeah.
So.
She always sounded like she was the voice actress of Buttercup, and I know she's not, but she's got a similar voice. So I always growing up, I was like, is that Buttercup? Like, no, it's not. I didn't know what voice actors were at the time.
Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls?
Yeah. Because she got that raspy voice. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, those are the major players in this film. A League of Their Own was a box office smash, grossing $132 million on a budget of only $40 million. Has an IMDb score of 7.3, Letterboxd score of 3.8 out of 5, Rotten Tomatoes score of 81%. Critics' consensus reads, sentimental and light, but still thoroughly charming, A League of Their Own is buoyed by solid performances from a wonderful cast. Accurate. I think that's a very apt description of this movie.
Yeah.
It spawned a TV spin-off in 1993 with Gary Marshall, Megan Cavanaugh, Tracy Reiner, and John Lovitz reprising their roles. It lasted 5 episodes before it was canceled.
Woo.
There was also a recent Prime Video series that premiered this past August with 8 episodes. A second season is currently being discussed. I haven't checked it out. It's a completely different situation. All the characters are different. The story's different. It's just the title.
Yeah. I've never liked spin-offs of things that I really enjoy because they always tend to disappoint me, so I'm just not going to watch it. I'm sure I hope it's a good show because it's a really cool story that should be talked about more, because any single time you hear World War II, you know of the women going into the workforce. You know about that. But you don't think about this aspect of it. Baseball was huge in the country, so these women took it upon themselves to keep the sport going. And no, it wasn't as successful as Major League Baseball, but it was more successful than they thought, which is pretty impressive. And then it disappeared because the men came back and people don't like women's sports. And ta-da.
Yeah, it's more I don't like that it was developed, it became something good, something that people can be proud of. But it started as, let's watch a bunch of scantily clad hot women play baseball. But they turned it into something that matters.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. So, that's the movie. Tell us a bit about the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. What was this? How did it start? Why was it important?
Yeah, so basically in the fall of 1942, a lot of the minor league teams were disbanding, which a lot of those feed into the major league teams. Men were being shipped off to the war front in Europe. And Philip K. Wrigley, the Chicago Cubs franchise owner, was like, we need an idea because I don't want to lose money. I can't just make all my profits off of gum. So he gets a guy named Ken Sells, the assistant to the Cubs general manager, like Dwight Schrute, the assistant to the manager. This is what this guy was. Basically come up with an idea, and he comes up with a girls softball league. There already were professional-ish girls softball leagues at the time, but they weren't anything, popular because women weren't supposed to play sports. They were supposed to stay at home, be a home, woman, keep your nails done right, be a good stay-at-home lady, and that's what you do. So they started the All-American Girls Softball League in spring of 1943. They make Ken Sells the president of the league. They have a bunch of name changes throughout, but the whole point was to keep money coming into the Major League Baseball League while the men were away. They initially tried to use the Major League stadiums as a place for the women to play, but the owners were like, no. So that's why it's all the way up in the Midwest. It was only initially in Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And it was at smaller towns because the big MLB teams up there were like, no, you can't use our stadium. Sorry.
That is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let them use the
And they thought it would be better to do that because it could help save money. So the major league teams were still going on, but a lot of the big names were going away. They were getting shipped off, I think Joe DiMaggio ends up leaving, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go fight, Hitler and kick his butt and stuff. Nobody wanted to go to games anymore because they're like, well, the people I know aren't there. So they're like, we can keep money coming in if when you guys are away, we put the girls in there. And they were like, no, we don't want that. So that's why they were stuck in, let me see, what was it? It was South Bend, Rockford, Racine, and Kenosha, all in different states. Racine and Kenosha were in Wisconsin, Rockford was in Illinois, and South Bend was in Indiana. And yes, then we have our baseball league formed. I believe it ends up being defunct by the mid-1950s.
Yeah, 43 to 54
Yep.
was the run of the All-American Girls League.
And they have many name changes throughout it. Initially started as the All-American Girls Softball League, but they changed it through the first season to the All-American Girls Baseball League to distinguish it from softball because they weren't using the same rules as softball. They were using baseball rules. But they did have the pitcher's mound closer, but they were using a pitcher's mound, which you don't use in softball, and they were throwing underhand, which you don't do in baseball. So it was confusing for people. And then they changed it to the All-American Girls Professional Ball League, just to be like, okay, it's not baseball or softball, it's the ball league.
It's ball.
Its own thing.
It's just ball.
And then they went back to the All-American Girls Baseball League, and then finally the American Girls Baseball League. When they started actually incorporating baseball rules, they made the bases further apart, used a smaller ball, etc. But at some point, too, a rival club opened up because they were like, we got to get in on this. We got to start making money off of our professional softball leagues. I don't remember what it was called. Did I not write it down? Darn it, Isabel. Anyway, there was a rival league that opened. So a lot of the teams, kind of like WWE, whenever it was WWF, and then World Class Wrestling, were trading people back and forth all the time, trying to compete for viewership. That's what the All-American Girls Baseball League and this other team did because they wanted to profit off of women's playing baseball. But, it stopped being relevant when the guys come home. And then you go back to being a 1950s housewife, and we're going to be the nuclear family now.
Damn. Well, I think it's cool that it did last a bit past the end of World War II. There were still people interested in this. Yeah. So the movie, do you think this depicts the evolution and kind of the development of this league accurately?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that the movie was responsible for that because it only depicts the first season and there was multiple seasons of it and there was a lot of evolution that happened as this, season or as the years went on because this is only the first year and the first year for anything is going to be really changing. Obviously it doesn't depict the name change during it, but I mean it does show the general lack of interest at the beginning to the very end of it being popular. That is what happened after the first season. It was very popular and some of the major league owners were like, maybe we should have let them play at our stadiums. But even whenever they did, they still didn't make money because at some point I do believe a few of the stadiums let them come in, but they weren't making as much money as the smaller towns which already had them. But I think it does do a good job at kind of just showing you what it was like being on these teams and what it was like, to try out. A lot of what you see in the movie is relatively accurate. Of course, it's a movie, so it's going to be like dramatized and stuff. And they don't use any people's names properly. But that's okay that they do that. Like, I'm all right that they don't use like historical people in this movie.
Do you think that the film would lose some punch if they did that?
If they use people's names?
Yeah. Like if they were historically accurate as much as they could be, do you think this would be as an...
Well, yeah, because you couldn't make it funny. Like, you couldn't have, like, Jimmy Dugan, like, taking a piss for however many seconds, like he does, and Madonna being, like, counting, on her watch. How long? Like, how long, Like, you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to freaking drug your chaperone and then go dancing while the ugly one, like, gets drunk and is singing to some dweeb, like, in the audience. Like, you couldn't do that because it wouldn't be original to the source material. And that's why I'm okay when you make movies that are based in history but you use fake characters. That's what I wish, like, 300. It would have been perfectly fine if you were like, this is a movie set in this time period, but these are not actual people, so you can do whatever the fuck you want. And that's kind of what they did here, except they still kept it historic. They didn't go bananas and they were like, oh yeah, these girls, they actually went and killed Hitler themselves. Like, no, like, they didn't do that. They made the team, do what the All-American Girls Professional Teams did. They gave them an actual team name. The Rockford Peaches were a team in the league, and they were, in fact, the most successful one. They gave them all those things. They just made fun characters, so you could do whatever you want. You're not going to use, like, me, for example, and, like, I have my story. I actually played for the team, and then you, like, somehow made me, like, mad at my sister, even though I never played with my sister, but, now all of a sudden my best friend on the team is, like, they didn't butcher people's actual stories. They just came up with new ones, no doubt based off of other women who actually, were inspired, by that, but, yeah. I don't know, that was a weird rambling.
That's all podcasts are. It's rambling, but we use a microphone.
Yeah.
I would have ended the movie with Dottie or Kit making a giant Babe Ruth-esque home run that flies into the horizon. And then we cut to 44, Germany. Hitler's giving a speech. He's riling everyone up. And you just see out of nowhere a baseball come out, flying out of the sky, a fire trail behind it, and it just goes straight through his fucking head. And that's how World War II ended.
The end.
Everyone just kind of, like, stands there for a bit. They're not really sure.
Japan surrenders immediately. You have no need for the atom bomb. Like, you don't need any of that. Mussolini is like, oh, bada boopa, and he, like, runs away. I can do that because it's Mussolini and he's a piece of shit.
He is. You can mock anybody as long as they're universally hated.
The Italians hated him. It's okay.
And then they elected his, like, granddaughter.
Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, I like that idea. I like just, taking a historical moment and using fictional characters to get the most you can out of that moment.
Yeah, like, it's like a fan fiction, basically.
It's like The Patriot.
It is. It's like The Patriot, like, you're set in the American Revolution. You don't have, I don't remember what the guy's name is in The Patriot, but you don't have Mel Gibson's character.
Benjamin Martin.
Okay, yeah. Like, you don't have Mr. Martin going around with, like, a chainsaw, like, I'm gonna go kill King George, and, like, somehow, like, doing, like, a Jack Sparrow and using his, like, back hairs to get sea turtles across the ocean, and, like kills King George and then comes back and throws it on George Washington's, like, desk, and he's like, Liberty, bitch, and then the movie ends. Like, no, because that's not accurate. Like, you have, like, it's a based in history movie that's a fictionized version of it. I don't know, those are the movies I enjoy. It doesn't have to be a historically, like, but, like, you don't have, like, outlandish things happening in a time period it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's just, like, a story that's like, wow, that was a cool story. But it never happened because it's whatever, but you're not ruining everything else around it to make it seem purely fantasy.
Well, as we talked about in our last episode, like, when you use real people, I give an obligation to tell their stories accurately.
Yeah, you do.
But if you're going to just, if Leonidas was just, titled King Shit of Fuck Mountain or something, I would, battle rhinos galore, do whatever you want. Actually, that reminds me of a Robot Chicken sketch they did where it was Zack Snyder's take on the American Revolution.
Oh, no.
And it was called 1776, and it was like George Washington, like, leaping off a mountain to sign the Declaration and, like, just crazy shit. And the tagline was, "It ain't accurate, but it'll blow your fucking mind."
See, I'm okay with that if you go into it knowing this is not going to be an accurate, like, this is going to be a fan fiction of George Washington literally, like, destroying every single British, but like Cornwallis, when that bitch surrendered, it wasn't just all like, oh, whatever. Nah, he goes over and he like puts a saber in his skull and then like takes it out, and then it goes across the Atlantic and it throws in kind of like the Hitler thing with the baseball, and it goes through King George's face at his eye, and it like, and just that's what happens.
And the blood, like, King George's blood trail spells out no mercy.
Yeah, or something, or it's like you hear an eagle caw in the background, like. And it's like, what? Like, you know it's not real, but that's okay because you're using, you know, like, don't make a movie about a historical event using the historical characters and then actually make a historical event out of it. Like, I'm actually going to be doing the Battle of Thermopylae or whatever, but like, here are orcs that sound like thromps. Like, every single time they die. Like, no. You could do, you know, Leonidas, and he's like, I'm on a mission to go kill Ares because I'm going to become a god now. Like, okay, I guess that didn't happen. I know that didn't happen. I'm not some ignorant person.
That's the plot of God of War, but yeah.
It's cool. I don't know. That's my biggest thing. If a movie is, you know, released and people who are not versed in history are meant to think that it's a real historical film, it better be accurate. But if you go in watching it knowing, like, by the title, like, okay, this isn't going to be historical, it just looks like a cool action film set in 1852. Okay, cool. Like, do whatever the fuck you want. It's not supposed to be historic. But, like, with this movie, for example, it's a league of their own. There's no thing in the title that makes you think this is just going to be some gimmicky thing. Like, you have an idea, like, this is probably going to be you would hope, a depiction of it. And I think they did a good job. I don't think they went crazy with it. And I'm happy that they didn't use actual characters because that gave them, like I said, liberty to have the funny scenes, to have, like, the comedic value of it, which makes the movie so charming.
True. And it really is, like, an American audience problem where, based on a true story, you can use that phrase so generously. Mm-hmm. It's really... Actually, 1996, the movie Fargo. Mm-hmm. Great movie. Coen Brothers, Oscar winner. Great movie about a kidnapping scheme gone horribly wrong. 3 or 5, however many million dollars ended up in a case buried in a ranch somewhere. They used the phrase based on a true story for that movie, but it wasn't. There's nothing in that movie based in fact. But people still to this day go to Minnesota to try to find that cache.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. Like, there's no research involved because people don't have that kind of... Regular people aren't like us. They don't have time to research shit.
No.
Or they don't care. So they're going to just believe whatever you tell them.
Exactly. It's like, I'm gonna crap on The Lost Colony. It's a play that they do in North Carolina. If there's anyone from North Carolina listening, you might not like me for saying this. That play is a piece of trash. I worked at the national park that's over there. That's like, you know, the history, the place that all this stuff happened. It's the history of Roanoke Island, the first attempted English colony in the New World. And the play takes so much creative liberty, but people leaving it were like, wow, I didn't know that Virginia Dare was the reason why England became an empire. Yeah. I didn't know that the English found potatoes and brought them back to England, and Queen Elizabeth was like, oh my God, potatoes. Like, I didn't know that. Like, it didn't happen. And I had to sit there like, didn't happen, but I couldn't be a buzzkill. Yeah, if you're making a show that's supposed to be based on a true story, and it's not, say inspired by a true story. It's inspired. It's not based, because based means this is the base of it, and we're going to build off of it. Like, the base is like a grain of salt in your soup. And it's like, okay, no, it's not. Like,
okay. Where do you stand on films then like Inglourious Bastards that are very obviously not true, but they have historical figures like Hitler and Goebbels getting blasted apart by Jewish soldiers? It's cathartic and it's awesome, but it's bullshit.
Well, you're not supposed to think that it's a true movie.
It's true, but what if you're an idiot and you go in there and you go start telling people like, oh my God, I didn't know that's how World War II ended?
Most people would definitely make fun of you for that because I would like to assume a majority of educated individuals know that some lady did not burn down a room filled with all the Nazi delegates.
When it comes to
being like, ha 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 ha, after getting killed by Hitler's promised child, who's like the biggest cuck in the universe. Like, no.
When it comes to intelligence and education, assume nothing.
See, but again, Inglourious Bastards is not based on a true story. Quentin Tarantino's not like, well, this is actually based on some chick that actually... No, like, it's a fan fiction. It's like the George Washington thing that we, like, joked about. Like, you could put George Washington in a movie, but that doesn't mean that the movie is super accurate. You're just using him as a character. It's like how people use, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like... who's a figure that a lot of people will, like, put in stuff?
Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, okay, Queen Elizabeth or whatever. I don't know. It's stuff like that. Like, you have him in there to kind of make you feel like, okay, this is a little bit more real than, like, I don't know, The Hobbit. And none of this shit is real. So it bases it kind of in reality, but you still know it's like an alternate universe. It's a fan fiction. It's not real, but it's a fun take on it. It's like, what would have happened if a chick had a vendetta against the Nazi people because she watched her family get killed after, Christoph Waltz said they are the floorboards, aren't they? And like, she spent her whole life trying to kill him. It's a cool story.
It is. I don't know why I'm trying to defend the stupid. I guess I'm playing devil's advocate because I don't care for the stupid. But
yeah, we don't care about you dummies.
It is something I think about.
Read a book.
If you're going to use a real person in your movie, like how accurate do you have to be to that person's character, to who they were? I wonder about that.
I feel like you do need to be accurate to them. Like, I wouldn't want to see Martin Luther King in a movie and he's like, I don't know, like not the way history remembers him. Like if you're going to put him in there, unless it's like, this is a farce about whatever character, like, oh, we're putting, I don't know, like, Blackbeard in this movie, but we're gonna make him like super flamboyant and he's actually like a closet pirate back then, and we're gonna like have him actually be like a treasure hunter who's secretly fighting for Spain. Like, that's not what happened. Like,
is that a TV show?
I don't know, maybe like I have no idea. That just came up in my brain.
Are you sure? Because that sounds very similar to Our Flag Means Death, but I haven't seen the show.
I've never heard of that.
I think that some of that at least might be the premise of that show.
I don't know. If you're gonna put a historical character in a movie, it just, unless you like explicitly are like, this is not at all supposed to be true. Like, I'm gonna put Jesus in this movie and he's gonna have like ninja skills. Like, as far as we don't know if Jesus had ninja skills or not. But still, I don't know.
Yeah. There was a movie that came out on Netflix last year called America, the Motion Picture. I don't know if you took a look at that.
Oh, I have it saved. I need to watch it just because I want to laugh.
It's gonna, as a historian, it's gonna give you an aneurysm.
See, but I'm not gonna watch that for history because
I know,
I see the animation and I'm pretty sure there's like a dude drinking a beer. Like, I know looking at that, this is not going to be a documentary about America. This is going to be some satirical piece of trash.
I know,
that I'm going to love.
What they do with it is still so like, are you kidding me? I described it as the last thing a like Florida State student sees as he like ODs on Adderall while he's studying for his history test. But it's like George Washington and his super best bro Abraham Lincoln. It's already right there. I'm like, what? Have to like form an Avengers style of like team of American historical figures to take on King James.
That's fantastic.
It was so stupid. It was ridiculous. But it made me laugh.
It's not supposed to be a historical show because automatically you have two people from different time periods that didn't exist. It's perfect. I'm
not claiming this film as a documentary. I just find it crazy that we can do that.
I mean, there's an anime where Jesus and the Buddha are roommates, so I think there's really anything that's like fair game.
Yeah, good stuff.
So League of Their Own.
Yeah, League of Their Own. Some stuff I had from the movie, just some like highlights I wanted to point out. I love the character of Marla.
Yeah.
Because she's just introduced as just this ugly duckling that everyone just kind of like looks at like, whoa.
Poor Marla.
And she ends up married to, as you said, some dweeb.
Yeah, what's his name? Nelson.
Yeah. I recognized him as the guy in Home Alone who couldn't help Kate get to an airplane. He was like, where the hell am I? Scranton. That guy.
Nelson reminds me of the guy from Batman Forever, the security guard at the beginning who Two-Face is messing with, and he's like, my shoes are melting! Like, that's who Nelson reminds me of.
It's boiling acid! Yeah. There's a certain...
Smiles.
Jesus. There's a certain build of person that keeps popping up in movies as just like the certified joke.
Yeah. And
just by looking at him, we're like, oh, something funny's going to happen with this guy.
This is going to be a kooky character.
Yeah. But no, it was actually pretty serious, and they get married, and it was nice.
Yeah, it was cute.
It was sweet.
He said, I'll drive her home. It'd be an honor. Like, aw, that's nice.
I felt this movie, like, as a man, I don't know what it's like to be a woman in America, but this was pretty fucking condescending. Like, remarkably condescending. Just the team, the Rockford Peaches. Like, really?
Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to call them?
I don't know, something with some bite.
Some bite? Yeah, but like, that's not a 1940s women team. You're not gonna be like, oh yeah, like the Rockford Baddies. Like, no, that's like a team from today. That's what all those. But even like you hear teams in high school, they like high school teams, they're always the lady, whatever the mascot is. They're never given some like cool thing. It's like, oh, you could be like the Warrioresses or Warrioresses or whatever. No, you're just the Lady Warriors. You're just the Lady Jaguars. Like, you're just the lady whatever. Women still kind of get the shaft in terms of team names, which is lame. Unless they're their own, like, professional thing. But if it's a spin-off or a whatever of, like, for this example, you're in the 40s. I don't at all. I'm not surprised, but... like, even today that happens. When I was a softball player, I was happy we were the Volunteers, which was pretty cool. But as, like, a soccer player as a little kid, we were the Daisies. Which, to be fair, I also was in kindergarten. You probably wouldn't want to give little kids, like, a badass name. Like, oh, yeah, they're the, I don't know, like, the Man-Eaters or something. So, like, the Daisies are cute, but, like, I appreciated having the Volunteers as our name. We were orange and blue and had, like, a little angry patriot guy on our hat. Like,
I worked at New Braunfels High School for a bit, and
yes,
their mascot is the Unicorns. That's the standard team. So I wonder, is it like a Lady Unicorns, or how does that?
Yeah, I guarantee you they're probably the Lady Unicorns. That's like high school names are so lazy for the women's teams. They're just like, oh, just slap the word lady in front of it, perfect. It's like I don't know, it's stupid.
Yeah, it is. In this movie, John Lovitz's job is to go across the Midwest and find not just good ball players, but hot ball players. So that is the main thing he wants to find. It doesn't matter if they're good at playing the game, as long as they're attractive. If they're good at playing the game, it's a bonus. And that was kind of shitty. And Harvey's whole organization, they have to wear skirts instead of actual uniforms. That's apparently true.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like I saw in the documentary, like the bruises they would get from sliding and playing baseball with a skirt on and not proper attire.
Yeah,
like that's fucked up.
Yeah, no, it was part of the rules that they had to wear lipstick at all times. That was one of it. You couldn't wear jewelry while playing the game, so they did have some sort of idea of like safety because you shouldn't wear jewelry like period if you're playing any sort of sports. But yeah, they had to wear like a tunic with a flared skirt on it. Because it's about being pretty. That was a big thing in the 1940s and 50s. You gotta be bombshells because why are people gonna watch a bunch of butch boys or butch girls go out there playing sports when you could have like nice pinup dolls going out and also being good at sports? Because they weren't putting girls on there that weren't good. They were going to, areas that had like potential. They had tryouts. I believe over 200 women tried out for the first, whatever it's called, season. And only, I think, 64 made the teams. And you had to be good. Like, they tested every skill you would have. Fielding, pitching, catching, sliding. I don't think they probably knew they were going to be playing in skirts when they were having to slide. Because why the hell would you slide in a skirt? But, it's whatever. That's tiny details. They also weren't allowed to have short hair. That's another one. You had to have long, flowing hair, so I wouldn't have been allowed to play. Because I have a short haircut. Because long hair looks horrible on me. But yeah, like they had to have a certain hairstyle. You had to have a certain physique. You had to have a certain, makeup style. Like they were all given beauty kits and they were given instructions on how to use them as well, which is another thing I would not be allowed on the team for because I don't wear makeup because it's expensive.
I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to. I would have fought back so hard, and I can't believe more didn't. I mean, the forced charm classes, the no smoking, no drinking, no men rules, and just this like facade they have to put on of the all-American girl. It's fucking crazy. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was, and that's still, I'm sure, I don't know, what happens with like our Olympic athletes either, but I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever seen an ugly Olympic athlete?
Off the top of my head, I can't picture.
Or like at least female athlete. That's the bigger one. Because I feel like guys, they get a little bit more leeway, but with a lot of things with women, even today, like you don't see unattractive women in any sort of public role. You don't see them on sports leagues. You don't see them on like news broadcasts, which that's a bigger one. You don't really see anybody unattractive on those. But still, like anytime I watch the Olympics, I've never seen someone, I'm like, oh, that's on the face a mom could love. Like, because it's still an important, it's still an important aspect of our culture is beauty and looking nice and like facial symmetry and like not having a unibrow. Like that poor girl on their team, and the lady was all like, there should be two of them or whatever when she was doing like the beauty, you know, like standard thing. I don't know, it makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we still in this country at least still prioritize looks over talent, and that's just fucking stupid.
That's how it be. But I feel like that's kind of a what is it called? I'm trying to think of the word, but it's like one of those like primitive things, because you know attraction to people is inherently like primitive. That's how people breed. You want to like put things that are pretty up on pedestals because that's what you're sexually attracted to, and you know that's still what pushes things today. That's why it's like hard for people who are just like, oh, I got a personality, but I don't look nice. Like it's hard for them to find a mate because inherently people are attracted to what they're attracted to, and there is a standard for it. And it's sad because it does keep people off of, you know, jobs that they should get, or, you know, just relationships and all that. That's why I hate like Miss Universe and Miss America and like especially toddler beauty pageants. Those are McFreaking gross. It's so nasty that you're teaching these little girls to go up there and like put in like fake teeth, because if you don't know that, they do that. They put in fake teeth. I think they're called flippers. And they put like makeup on, and they have like these little things. And if they're not pretty enough, then, you know, they're not going to win. And so they instill that at an age of like 5, that you're never going to be good because you look like shit compared to this other little girl in a swimsuit, because for some reason that's okay that we're doing that. Frank Reynolds sings a song about it. Should watch that episode of Always Sunny. Frank's Little Beauties.
Yeah, and if you are wondering, he does not diddle kids.
No, he does not diddle kids.
He's very clear about that.
They gotta be big, not little. Older than my daughter.
Oh, yeah, I despise the whole toddlers and tiaras culture. That is so sick.
It is so nasty.
And I don't get why that's just so normalized in this country. We have so many fucking weird things we just are okay with in this country. And sexualizing children is amazingly one of them.
It's gross.
Back to A League of Their Own.
Yes.
Jimmy Dugan. I didn't know he was going to be such an asshole. And because Tom Hanks doesn't usually play assholes. But, you know, he learns and he becomes a good leader. But in that first half of the movie, man, he is just a prick.
That's how you scratch your balls for however. Wave my little hat. No, when do I get paid? I love that movie.
I love Use Your Brain. It's that lump 3 feet above your ass. Yeah, no crying in baseball. It's an iconic scene. I get it now. Mm-hmm. It's delightful.
There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. And then she cries because why would you do that? Poor Evelyn.
And then later, he composes himself and nearly gives himself a stroke, but is like, I need you to work on that. Can you do that for me? Oh, Hanks, you're the best. And yeah, the crux of this film is the relationship between Dottie and Kit.
Yep. Which
comes to head at the World Series. And I believe Rockford did they make it to the series?
No,
they didn't make it to the
series.
series.
They didn't make it to the first World Series, so that's not an accurate part, which makes me wonder why they didn't pick Kenosha, or no, who was it, the ones that went to the first one? Hold on, I can do this. I wrote it down on my notes. Oh, it was the Kenosha Comets and Racine Bells, which Racine is in the World Series in the movie, and they do win. So you wonder why they didn't make them the Racine Bells?
Kenosha Comets?
Yeah.
That's quite better than the Rockford Peaches.
Well, and I don't want to say they named them the Peaches for anything sexual. I don't know the, I guess, agricultural economy of Rockford, but I imagine that was also because they like grow peaches up there.
Where is Rockford again?
It's up in Illinois.
Okay. See, I think, Illinois, I immediately think Chicago Bears or Chicago Cubs. It's like,
yeah, but those are men teams. You're not going to name the men the Peaches.
See, that's there it is. Yeah, that's where I was getting.
Well, you're not going to do that because men are like angry and mean. Girls are like, oh, we're girls. We get to be the Peaches, not the Cubs.
I met a lot of mean girls.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, girls are bitches.
Yeah. So Dottie and Kit Kit gets traded up to Racine and knocks one out of the park. debatable whether Dottie dropped the ball on purpose. I like to think she did.
I think she did.
Yeah.
Because she had, like, that one time when she didn't drop it and someone ran into her.
Also, Kit, fuck you for just plowing right into your sister.
She did that on purpose. Yeah. Like, she totally did.
And then afterwards is like, hey, it's okay. And Dottie's like, I just want to go home. I got my husband back.
My husband didn't die, unlike somebody's.
I'm glad she didn't say that. Unlike Betty, who's not even trying.
Yeah, imagine being someone with a dead husband in the war. Come on, Betty, get good.
I don't like the way Jimmy did that, by the way. He just walks into the room, starts walking towards Dottie, and then is like, sorry, Betty. Like,
I'm sorry, Betty.
That was
horrible.
horrible.
They were sitting right next to each other. It was for the movie.
I know, but he could have said, like, hey, everybody leave, but, Betty. Or he could have done the really insensitive way, like, who here has a husband?
I can't
Not
remember.
so fast, Betty.
Is it? Oh, ooh, man. All right, everyone who has a husband, let's go on the field.
Yeah.
Ooh, Betty, I'm sorry. You got to stay here.
Jesus.
That sucks, damn.
I do love Bob, though.
Yeah.
We know
Lone Star!
Yeah, fucking Bill Pullman, president of President Independence Day, gives the best speech ever.
Yeah.
Always love Bill Pullman. But in this, we know nothing about Bob besides he's Dottie's husband. And then we meet him and we know even less.
Yeah.
Guy has no personality. But you know what? He's supportive and I like that.
Yeah, which is nice.
I'll take it. I was entirely expecting him to be like, no wife of mine's going to be a ball player.
I was kind of scared whenever I was younger that he would be like that. And he was like, that's my wife.
Yeah.
Like, aw, man,
he's there at the games. I love it.
That's so nice.
So yeah, Rockford loses, but the league plays on.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy's like, I already got a job. And I like that. Jimmy's like, I'm going to stay here. They need me, and I need them. And we flash forward to the framing device, which is this old lady who is dubbed over with Gina Davis's voice, which is fucking weird. Instead of just giving Gina Davis some old makeup or letting the lady speak naturally, they did some kind of weird hybridization that just doesn't age well.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, it took me a while to like, is that still Gina Davis? Or is that like a really good lookalike?
Well, they go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, which did happen. These ladies were inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they have a wing. I haven't been to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I hope it's still there.
I assume it is. I don't know why it wouldn't be.
I don't know. Assuming they gotta like make extra space for like some Barry Bonds exhibit or something.
No, they would raise too much hell if for like some reason they had to, or for some reason they were trying to find an excuse to get rid of the women's baseball league thing. Because again, they weren't the only professional team. Like the only professional league. They had the other one that like fought with them to get players into trade and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimmy Dugan, by the way, was not real. He's based on two separate baseball players. Let me see if I've got them. Do you have them by chance?
No.
All right, I will.
I do not.
This is the Bill O'Reilly Hour. We're doing it live, folks.
But while he's looking at it, some of the other team names that came up later on, you had the Minneapolis Millerettes, Milwaukee Chicks, Kenosha Comets, Rockford Peaches, Chicago Colleens.
The Milwaukee Chicks. Oh
yeah.
My God.
Peoria Red Wings, Springfield Sallies, South Bend Blue Sox, Fort Wayne Daisies, Kalamazoo Lassies, Racine Bells, the Muskegon Lassies / Bells, Grand Rapids Chicks, Battle Creek Bells. Rockford was the one that won the most titles. And then another thing that happened in the movie that isn't accurate, I guess they had a 7-game series like the MLB does. They only had 5-game series.
Okay.
So not like a big crazy thing, but that they didn't have a 5-game series.
Tom Hanks said this is his favorite movie of his, by the way, which I love.
Really? Oh, that makes me happy.
Yeah. Jimmy Fox and Hack Wilson. That is the most 40s name I have ever heard in my life. Hack Wilson.
It is.
That's fantastic. And yeah, they were, I'm sure, I don't know how much of them got into Jimmy, but Jimmy's a washed up ex-great ball player who has, a cartilage problem in his knees and is now considered a liability because he's a drunk. And they just kind of need somebody to babysit, so they give it to him, and he's immediately just like, he's happy to hit the money, but he is so resentful of having to do this.
Yeah, but he's not the only, I don't know, like, I didn't read too much into it. I was looking, all the information I got is from, like, the All-American Girls Baseball League website. But he wouldn't have been the only like former player to be a manager. They really only got former players to be managers of the teams for the crowd aspects. When he's like, I'm gonna wear my little hat and I get paid. That's kind of why they did it, because it's hard to sell women's sports. It still is today. That's why the like WNBA isn't as popular as the NBA. So one of the aspects you would get people to go out is like, oh, I heard, so-and-so's going to be there. He used to play for the Chicago Cubs. I want to go see him. And they're like, oh, wow, like, the women are actually pretty good at playing baseball. Interesting. So yeah, he wasn't the only one that did that. I'm sure, though, there were a few that were pretty resentful of it, because it is a culture shock. Like, we're doing what now? Who's playing baseball? No. But the women did get pretty well paid. They got $45 to $85 a week. Which in today's currency, I think goes up to like 600, something like that. And then it went up to 125, if not more than that, in the later seasons. So they got compensated really well for doing this. And like professional league baseball, they had to play hundreds of games during the season, over 100, so not hundreds, but they had to play a lot. Which I imagine is kind of weird when you only had 4 teams at the beginning. It's like YMCA teams, and it's like, oh, okay, the volunteers are playing the Pirates today. Okay, now you're going to go play the Lassies. Oh, back to playing the Pirates because you played them last week, because that's all there is. So, yeah, I'm sure that got a little weird and uncomfortable. I'm sure there was some pretty big rivalries between those teams.
I imagine so. Yeah, it is interesting that they tried to create kind of the same atmosphere of the World Series with only a handful of teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, they made the most of it. A lot of them were great players who did a great job. And I do like in the movie that, you gradually get to see the hecklers turn into fans and the seats start to sell out and people actually started caring. Because, morale was down in World War II. We lost baseball. All the men were away to die. It was like, what the hell do we do now? And President Roosevelt was like, I'll tell you what we do. We play some fucking ball.
We're going to stay seated because I can't stand.
You ever see Pearl Harbor?
No.
Apparently there's a scene where President Roosevelt is like, we got to do something. And he like climbs out of his chair and is like, I will stand for this, or something like that. It's so sappy.
Wow. Good for him.
It's a terrible movie, but in that moment, it's like, wow, it's a lot. Yeah. Any other fun facts, details about the All-American Girls League you might have discovered?
I can think of. Oh, well, this is also interesting. Besides the fact that the players were constantly like jumping ship from the All-American Girls League to the other league, they also were traded pretty frequently throughout the series and during the season. So like when Kit gets traded in the movie and she's all pissy about it, like that wasn't uncommon. They would have done that to try and keep the teams as balanced as possible, because they didn't want just one team to just win, because nobody would want to go to the game. You're like, oh, well, we already know who's going to win. The Bells are going to win because they have all the good players. So it would be very common for them to move girls around to try and balance things out. So it would be something you'd be like, oh, well, I don't know. They traded this person to this, team now. Maybe they'll be a little bit better. That was pretty interesting. They also forbade the girls from like having communication with each other on different teams to keep the spirit of rivalry alive. So they're like, nope, if you're on the Racine Bells, you're not allowed to talk to the Rockford Peaches. Sorry, like, but my sister's over there. Like, too bad. That sucks. You gotta hate each other. Also, get that cigarette out of your mouth.
They treated it like a game of make-believe.
Yeah.
The owners, anyway.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Well, it's similar to WWE with the whole kayfabe thing. Whenever you're not, like, on the ring or whatever, in the ring doing your thing, you're still going to act like a dick. Like, if you're Roman Reigns right now, and you're being, like, the tribal chief being an ass, when you leave, you can't be like, oh, hey, dude, like, nice to meet you, Mike. My name's... You're going to be like, oh, like, bow to me, acknowledge me. Like, you got to keep it going. Except this was not, like, scripted beforehand. Like, this... Or it is, because I could go on a whole rant about how I think professional leagues are definitely rigged. And they're scripted, and we already know who's going to win the Super Bowl before it even happens. But, no, it's not. It's all about stats. It's so much better. We just need to kill Jerry Jones so that the Cowboys do better.
I had mentioned earlier a baseball movie called 8 Men Out, which is the story of the 1919 World Series, which was rigged. Like, it was found out that the White Sox had cheated, and some of the White Sox had cheated, but the whole team got penalized for it. And it's about the trial and who got kicked out, and the people who were like, "Why did you do this?" Like, I just wanted to play ball. I didn't know about this, but they were part of it. Great movie.
Did you mean the Houston Astros?
No. But it does happen a lot.
Astros don't deserve that other World Series. It should be taken away from them, but oh well. Sadly, they won this year. I'm gonna cry. That's fine.
I don't know. Sports aren't my forte.
It's fair. But the next movie I pick is probably going to be a sports movie. So
that's fine.
I'm probably going to be doing Glory Road at some point because I love that movie.
I could throw us headlong into The Conjuring, but I won't.
Oh, I forgot. That is based off of a historical thing. Interesante.
So after weighing the evidence, I'm going to label this one with real.
I would. It's not so outlandish that if you go and someone's like, do you know anything about the All-American Girls Baseball League, that someone would give facts from the movie, be like, no. The fact that they don't use proper like characters, you know, if you're like, oh yeah, like Jimmy Dugan, like, who the fuck is that? That's not a real person. Like, but everything else is pretty accurate. Like, there wasn't anything that was so, ugh. They didn't do that. They didn't actually wear skirts. They didn't actually have, like, no, they did. They had that whole training camp at Wrigley Field, even though it was Harvey Field in the movie. Like, that all happened, which is pretty cool. So I would also say it's real. Real to me.
Yeah, the characters are fictional, but the spirit is real. And I think this is an important movie, tells a vital piece of American sports history, and gives you enough to actually know something about it, which is nice.
I agree.
If you asked, some dude who watched 300 about the Battle of Thermopylae, and he's like,
God.
oh yeah, the Persians had giants, and there was a hunchback, and yeah, no, you lost Jeopardy, pal. This was fun. I always enjoy doing these. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at FILMGAZM Productions. If you want to suggest films for us to check out, you can email us at filmgasm@gmail.com or send us a message on the socials. Check out the website, filmgasm.com. We have reviews, articles, trailers of upcoming films in every episode of all 5 of our shows now. If you want to support the show through Anchor, you can click on Support This Podcast on your preferred provider. We appreciate any donations. Don't miss Better Watch Out on Wednesday's Filmgasm, the Star Wars Holiday Special on Fridays Beyond the Bad, and The Mummy on Oscar Sunday.
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. Quick reminder that Fake True Stories is not a weekly show, but rather a spontaneous experiment that can drop at any time, whenever Isabel and I feel like putting one together.
Yeah.
For our next episode, we're going to be taking on Disney's 1995 historical travesty, Pocahontas.
What are you talking about? It's totally a true story.
It is a travesty, and I will stand by that. A truly disingenuous retelling of English settlers' first encounters with Native American tribes in the early 17th century. Set to a Vanessa Williams soundtrack that is pretty good. I will give it that.
It's a fantastic soundtrack.
So yeah, Pocahontas. It's gonna get dark and it's gonna get angry next time.
We're gonna dunk on some more Disney stuff, but I also really love the movie, so look forward to some coping.
In the meantime, take a loved one out to the ball game, and we'll see you next time on Fake True Stories.